Janelle Molony. I am a Rousseau family historian, and right now I'm in Chandler, Arizona, and I just had to stop and take a look at this big beauty. This is an ostrich, and yes, ostriches were all over Chandler, Arizona. There's a long history of them being in the area in ranches, and that's important for the Rousseau family because we actually have a long history of being here in Arizona as well.
Way back in 1892, Lovell Rousseau and his wife Desmonda left Mill Springs, Kentucky, where the family had a tobacco plantation. The couple and their two sons took a covered wagon from Kentucky and down into Maricopa County in what was then Arizona Territory.
They started up a ranch in Buckeye. Well, it wasn't called Buckeye back then, but that was pre-statehood. So Territory, Arizona, they were just considered in Maricopa County. And something that connects us to Chandler, Arizona is that in 1914, while Lovell Rousseau and his wife, Desmonda, were headed out to a wedding one night, the wedding was around 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock at night, they were on their horse and buggy headed out when a stampede, yes, a stampede of ostriches came after their horse and buggy, causing it to topple over.
News of the ostrich stampede went nationwide, including New York, New Mexico, and the Rousseaus' hometown of Mill Springs in Somerset County, Kentucky. Desmonda's obituary, featured in the Kentucky Advocate of November 18, 1914, reads, "Frightened by a stampede of 300 ostriches being driven along a country road, a horse driven by L.D. Rousseau, a rancher, ran away last evening, overturning the buggy and instantly killing Mrs. Rousseau, who, with her husband, was on her way to attend a wedding." The article explains that 14 men who were hired to drive this herd to Dr. A.J. Chandler's ostrich ranch struggled to contain the herd, and in spite of efforts to control them, they swept down the road at a terrific speed, it says. The obituary reports that Mrs. Rousseau was thrown out and her skull was fractured. Her husband escaped with a dislocated arm. A November 13 article from Stockton, California, really leans into the drama of this story, saying that Mrs. Rousseau, the wife of a wealthy pioneer, was directly in the path of the maddened birds, which bore down on her at great speed. Her horses, terrified, bolted and overturned the trap they were pulling. The ostriches swept over the wreckage and the horses, which were entangled in the harness. The article goes beyond the death of Mrs. Rousseau and even includes that the bodies of the horses were battered and torn by the birds' feet. A November 20, 1914 article in the Arizona Republic reads, "A herd of 140 ostriches arrived in Chandler last Saturday after a 3 days drive from the Pan American Ranch." It continues to read, "The trip was uneventful until the river bottom was reached, when 60 or more of the original 210 slipped away through the brush, and it is presumed that it was some of these birds that caused the fatal runaway recorded in last Friday's Republican. Some of the missing 70 birds were caught the next day and confined in different pastures, and the balance of them hid in different places in the sandy bottom of the Salt River." The article goes on to explain that to recover the lost birds, a team of 8 men went out to round up the missing birds with the help of a Mr. Huerta, a Pima Indian, and a Mr. Chapo, a Maricopa Indian. The article reads, "After a number of exciting adventures, the birds were all captured, and they, with 100 more half-grown birds from the Pan American Ranch, are now on their way to the new ostrich ranch at Chandler." 3 days after the tragic stampede and buggy turnover, the Arizona Republic reported that the country 10 miles below the city is alive with ostriches, and Indians and white men on horseback are chasing them over the desert with little result. The article reports that the horse is no match for the ostrich in speed, though one Indian boy must have caught one. It goes on to say that he was out selling a handful of long white plumes, that he must have pulled off one of the loose ostriches. As for the adults, the article says several horsemen with lassos were out hunting the big birds. The article reads, occasionally one would be seen and the cowboy would put spurs to his horse and get his riata in readiness. But when he approached the bird, it would merely lengthen its stride in the sand. It would not appear to be running, only walking hurriedly. But it rapidly widened the distance between itself and the horse. The article concludes that probably not many of the birds will ever be taken alive. When this news story reached Billings, Montana, the Daily Tribune reported on November 14 that the ostriches reduced the Rousseau's carriage to a scrap heap and that there was panic among the ranchers and families in the vicinity. Eventually, locals got involved in hunting down the loose and wild birds, including Paul and Ted Peterson of downtown Phoenix, who in 1914 tracked down 2 of the stray ostriches, as reported in a November 24th Arizona Republic. Results of this hunt found that the ostriches could be tired out more easily than caught on the run. So those participating in the hunt should be prepared for a long chase before it finally settles down.
Anyways, those ostriches happened to have recently been purchased by Dr. A.J. Chandler. He was having them come across the city to his ranch here in Chandler, right next to the San Marcos Hotel, which is a stone's throw away from where I am right now in downtown Chandler.
Dr. A.J. Chandler, a veterinarian by practice, is the founder of Chandler, Arizona, and he owned the very first ostrich farm outside of his hotel, the San Marcos. He had pens that would hold 200 ostriches each, and he had his eye on a fortune selling ostrich feathers to the fashion industry. Dr. Chandler's menagerie became a popular attraction for tourists who wanted to see the big animals up close. Included in this collection of ostriches to be found and caught as soon as possible is one that received a very special name. He was named Roughneck. Now, Roughneck, who was purchased by Dr. A.J. Chandler, was considered a big, handsome, black-feathered biped, according to the Bisbee Daily Review in March of 1915. He received his own stories in statewide news for actually being responsible for multiple deaths. The March 24 article reads, "It was Roughneck that started a stampede which resulted in frightening a horse, causing it to run away, throwing a woman out of the buggy, and killed her." But the article states that that was not the only occasion when this animal was decidedly ferocious and boldly attacked. In 1914, he also killed a farmhand by crushing the man's chest with his powerful foot, and sometime later, the article reads, he attacked another attendant who was injured so severely that he died shortly after. Another of Dr. A.J. Chandler's ostriches, named Scarneck, a big Nubian ostrich, was quite vicious. In a December 12, 1914 article from the Arizona Republic, there's a story that talks about the bad ostrich attacking men and also mules and horses, kicking at them and threatening to rip them open with the sharp horn toe of this foot. About the death of a beloved pioneer family woman, a touching tribute was offered in the Arizona Republic, signed by the pastor of the Cartwright Methodist Church, the president of the Epworth League, the secretary to the Women's Missionary Society, and the secretary of Board of Stewards. Oddly, no acknowledgement was published on behalf of Pan America or Dr. A.J. Chandler regarding the terrible loss. In 1988, the city of Chandler began an ostrich festival which used to offer entertainment such as ostrich races, where, yes, jockeys would get on the back of an ostrich and race down a course in the strangest derby folks had ever seen. Nowadays, guests of the Ostrich Festival can enjoy ostrich burgers, jerky, and either the meat of the ostrich eggs or jewelry and other crafts made with the eggshells. The Ostrich Festival has continued every March since then, and this March 2024 marks the 34th year in operation. After the 1914 tragedy, Lovell and Desmonda's sons, Clyde and William, continued in the family business of farming and ranching. Since then, the Rousseau Farming Company has been in the family for 4 generations and going strong.
So that's a really cool story. Sad for Desmonda, but also, hey, this is a unique connection to being here in territorial Arizona history with all of the Rousseaus. Thanks for watching.
But wait, the incredible history of the Rousseau family is not over yet. If you haven't already picked up a copy of the 1864 diary of Mrs. Sarah Jane Rousseau, you're missing out on something incredible. In 1864, Lovell and Desmonda's aunt and uncle, Dr. James and Sarah Rousseau, made the trek from Iowa all the way to San Bernardino, California, with the assistance and the leadership of Nicholas Earp, Wyatt Earp's father. And the Earps are legendary in Arizona's history because of the shootout at the OK Corral in Tombstone. You won't be disappointed when you take a look back and see what happened on the trail.